80 years ago when Heinrich Brüning, the austerity dictator, the equivalent of a modern Austrian school, Chicago school austerity freak, sort of what you've got now in New Jersey with Christie or in Virginia with McDonnell, and you're going to have it in New York State with Ravitch. Brüning took power 80 years ago. That was March 30th, 1930, 80 years ago, the end of this month. And we'll get to that in a minute. But let's look on the bright side, and let's look on the side of program and of mobilization for something positive. And this is the Robin Hood tax. Yes, indeed, the Robin Hood tax, the Tobin tax, in effect, the securities transfer tax, financial transfer tax, trading tax, Wall Street sales tax. Please go to Tarpley.net and take a look at this. You'll see it all laid out there, I hope in pedagogical form with all the necessary links. And it is simply this. There has been now, for the last couple of years, a campaign in which I have obviously participated for a Tobin tax. That is to say, in this economic depression, as we get deeper into it, there's more and more concern about how to provide tax revenue to keep teachers, policemen, firemen, state workers, health workers, and other people on the job, to maintain the essential fabric of human civilization, without which no individual, no matter how gifted, could really do too much. Therefore, we need some tax revenue. Obviously, you don't want to raise tax rates on the people that are already overtaxed, which is about 95% of the current population. Certainly the poor, working people, working families, the middle class, and so forth, even into the upper middle class, already very heavily taxed. Obviously, Wall Street financier oligarchs, parasites in a different class. So you look around the society and you say, what is the largest pool of wealth? Or are there any pools of wealth or flows of at least monetary wealth which are not taxed? And what you find there is Wall Street, as usual. The tax immunity enjoyed by Wall Street speculative transactions. We find that Goldman Sachs is able successfully to circumvent and evade the corporate income tax. The estimates are now that Goldman Sachs last year, 2009, paid between 1% and 2% of their total profits in taxes. That is much less than the poorest people down in the 15% bracket in the U.S. federal income tax. The most obvious thing, therefore, is to say, well, since Goldman Sachs, you have succeeded in frustrating the purposes of the federal corporate tax, we're going to come after you on the basis of your turnover, not your profits, your turnover, your buying and selling. We're going to hit you with a sales tax. Everybody knows what a sales tax is. Most U.S. states, it's between 6 to 7% and 10 to 11%. And the average person pays this on all transactions, clothing, shoes, consumer electronics, furniture, you name it. In many of these states, you have to pay that sales tax on groceries, meaning that this becomes a very significant bite out of your total income. It is a regressive tax. But then we look at Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan. We look at Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and the rest of the Wall Street zombie banks, hedge funds, and counting houses in general. And we ask, when they do their program trading, when they trade it's total between 1 quadrillion and 2 quadrillion a year of turnover in the United States of derivatives, that is to say, futures, options, indices, combinations of those, stocks, bonds, foreign exchange, commodities, and other kinds of paper speculative transactions, electronic too. Do they pay anything on that? No, the answer is zero, nothing, nada. That is absolutely tax-free. It is, in effect, subsidized. They pay zero. You pay 8 to 9 to 10% in many parts of the U.S. So what is the reason for this? Before 1789, before the French Revolution, the position of the French nobility was, you can't tax us because we're the nobility. That's what we have now with Wall Street. They basically say, you can't tax us. We're financier oligarchs. We own and rule this society. We own Obama. We own the Congress. and so forth. They do program trading. That's fast. They do high-frequency trading. That's even faster. And they do flash trading. That's the fastest of all so far. We're getting into the thousands of transactions per second plus, and nothing but nothing is paid on this. There is no taxation. And therefore, the proposal that I've made and others have made, and it's now been joined by the AFL-CIO, the trade unions, Robert Kuttner, many others, Jesse Jackson just came on board, is to say, impose a tax on their turnover, a sales tax on them, so that whether they gain profit or make losses or wash and make, break even, the public treasury in Washington and in the states will benefit, so that we can keep those essential things about civilization, the little things like teachers, policemen, firemen. You want to have property? Try having property without a police force. You better pay them, and you better pay them now. You want to have property? You better have a fire department, and you better pay them, and you better pay them now. If you have kids, or if you want to have workers who can read and write, you better have a public school system, and you better pay the teachers and keep up the buildings. Therefore, this is an imperative. You cannot have California going bankrupt, New York going bankrupt, City of Los Angeles, and so on down the line. Now, the immediate political focus is coming out of Europe. Europe has been under attack by the Wall Street hedge funds, as we've documented here. Soros, Goldman Sachs, and the rest of the gang have been attacking Greece, Spain, Ireland, Italy, Portugal, the so-called PIGS group, the weak flank, the Mediterranean or southern flank of the euro, as a means of attacking the euro, getting a euro crisis going, and masking the collapse of the dollar with a more rapid collapse of the euro. And therefore, the people in Europe, some elements, are attempting to strike back. Now, these are not pristine people. These are people who are obviously deeply compromised in all sorts of horrible things that have gone on lately. But here it is. On March 11th, the European Parliament voted by about 536 to 85, I think, to demand a Tobin tax. That is to say, a European Union-wide tax on stock turnover, derivatives, and other financial transactions. And that's a done deal. And all of the groups went with it. That is to say, the moderate conservatives, the Christian Democrats, the Social Democrats, the essentially all of the groups in the European Parliament, except the British Tories, the hidebound, ultra-reactionary British Conservative Party, the heirs and heiresses of Margaret Thatcher, and naturally the voice of the City of London, which is the worst concentration of speculative vultures anywhere in Europe, although Frankfurt is coming up fast and attempting to overtake them in this kind of a contest. Now, here's the other focus. In Britain, there will be a parliamentary election, a general election, sometime this spring. It can't really be more than 2 or 3 months off at the very most. Once the election is called, you have a 1-month election campaign and then a vote for a new parliament. Now, the problem here is, we know that Gordon Brown, of course, is a monster. Gordon Brown is the person who invented the bailout, and he began bailouts worldwide with Northern Rock in 2007, followed then by Royal Bank of Scotland, Lloyds Bank in 2008. There are a lot of people in the Labour Party who don't want to go down to defeat with Gordon Brown, and they are turning to the Tobin tax, as we will explain in the next segment.